And now we switch back again in English for another session, because we are now introducing a panel that is very important for us, because this panel is summarizing an entire journey that we have been doing really from the beginning of the global pandemic. It was the beginning of the pandemic in March last year, and together with Carlo Giardinetti, the Dean of Franklin University, with Reboot the Future, with Kim Pullman, Anthony Bennett, we decided to start a project called Good After COVID-19. And we arrived now out of the journey, of a one-year journey, to create kind of a manifesto, really to reboot the planet, a kind of a Marshall Plan, implementing the golden rule. And now I want to share with you a very interesting conversation between Anthony Bennett, Kim Pullman, Sandrine Dixon, president of the Club of Rome, and Francois Tadei, chief exploration officer at the Center of Researchers, Interdisciplinary Researchers. Now, here on stage, Reboot and the golden rule.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to our session where we are presenting our manifesto of values that could be the basis of a new green global Marshall type plan. I am Kim Pullman, co-founder and chair of Reboot the Future and co-author of Imaginal Cells, Visions of Transformation. Since March of last year, Reboot the Future Food Institute, and Franklin University have been running a series of fishbowl-type conversations called Good After COVID-19. The themes were the environment, health, finance, education, the arts, food, and finance. And we asked participants to consider what they're learning during this COVID period and how we can take those learning lessons forward to improve the world. In March this year, participants from these fishbowls, who are top thinkers from different age groups, sectors, and regions of the world, held a series of one-to-one dialogues. And on March 24th of this year, we all came together and had a plenary session to conclude the series of fishbowls and to unite the thoughts from the dialogues. Our goal was to brainstorm on basic principles that can guide the world to improve the state of the world, not only for humans, but also for all life, as a matter of urgency in the next decade. The idea of doing a green Marshall Plan has been talked about around the world and was inspired by the post-World War II Marshall Plan that was to rebuild Europe. And the purpose of the new Green Marshall Plan is to support, guide, and encourage the many technical ideas that are being worked on around the world to change how we operate as a species. Our manifesto hopes to provide the underlying values to drive the Marshall Plan forward. The most basic premise of our manifesto is a modern version of the Golden Rule that Reboot the Future promotes. Treat others and the planet as you would wish to be treated. From this comes 10 examples of how to live it practically that can serve as guiding principles that will help us to get to that greener, fairer, and more sustainable world as many of us dream about. Today, our speakers will share the 10 points with you. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve is currently co-president of the Club of Rome. Francois Tadai is co-founder and president of the Center for Research and Interdisciplinarity. And Philip Clayton is president of the Institute for Ecological Civilization. And Anthony Bennett is CEO of Reboot the Future and loves the Golden Rule as much as I do. So, broadly, the 10 themes of the manifesto are compassion, empathy, love each other, love our earth and be good stewards, balance, youth empowerment, education, new citizenship, the good ancestor, the life economy, and partnership. While the speakers are explaining their ideas, we'd love it for you to take your own notes and comments and log on to our website, rebootthefuture.org, go to the contact page and send us your ideas and feedback. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you. And Anthony, I turn it over to you to kick off with the first point.
Thank you, Kim. Well, I have what is simultaneously the easiest and the most profound point, which is love thy neighbor as thyself, which is the basis of the whole Golden Rule. And for Reboot, the Golden Rule is extended to the planet. So we want to love the planet and treat the planet as we would treat each other. In simple terms, what that means is that we have a symbiotic relationship with the planet that's not predatory. In economic terms, what it means is that we disavow a growth agenda. So we say that each year taking more out of the earth than the earth can give back to us is the wrong way around. We want to give back to the earth as we go forward and stop working on a basis that the planet has infinite resources to share with us. And on a social basis, what that means is we commit to a just transition. The formulation by the ITUC that we bring the global south along with us to a just and sustainable future, and that the global north has to treat the south as a partner within which it exists in a reciprocal partnership rather than one in which the north predates upon the south. That's it. That's the Golden Rule. And now, Philip.
It's my joy to share with you 3 amazing principles that are foundational for anything that we may want to do on the planet. The first one, to love each other, to care for each other. We recognize the fundamental rights of all people, that all should have equal opportunities and have full respect and dignity. We commit to listening to all constituents and to helping all people unleash their potential. As the great spiritual traditions in the history of humanity have held, love and justice are not separate. We can't speak of loving the other when we're not offering justice to her, equality of resources, equality of opportunities. There's a beautiful passage in the Christian scriptures where in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, would give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake?" That's a compelling sentence because we know the love of the parent for the child wants the best for the child. And to act unjustly to the child would make no sense. It would be completely inconsistent with that love. The same thing is true for how we treat others. In the golden rule is the foundation of all justice, of all equitable treatment one for another. That applies as much to our one-on-one relations, an individual I meet in the market or in a city or at work or socially, as well as to how groups treat groups, nations treat nations. This second principle also focuses on listening more than talking, and also on seeing the equal potential in all. Those who haven't had our advantages have equal gifts to give back to the planet and to humanity as a whole. The third principle is to love the earth and be good stewards. It includes at the top a beautiful phrase, to sacralize the world. To sacralize the world, to allow the world to be sacred and to make it sacred by the way that we treat it. That means we're grateful to all life, which gives us life, and that we hold in reverence. Reverence is a profound word of love and acknowledgement of greatness in the other. We reverence the beauty and wonder of our world. We promise to listen better to the earth and to its cries of pain. What happens when you gain power over something? The doctor over her patients, the father over the son, the boss over the employees. That's the moment at which the nature of love, if it's there, is most powerfully manifest. Love or hatred, the love of power or the love of the thriving of the other. Now apply that to the earth. We now have control over the earth. That's what the word the Anthropocene means. We, humanity, are now the number one geological force shaping the planet. What will we do with that power that we now have over the planet? In ancient Jewish tradition, the devout person would pray 3 times a day, tikkun olam, to repair the earth, tikkun olam. And this third principle asks us to take on that obligation to repair the earth, to sacralize it again, as the most ancient humans, the indigenous wisdom traditions had taught us. And now finally, the final principle to share is number 4, and that is balance. We strive to find more balance. The extremes are hurtful, and we have to find a balance in all these different areas. I think of William Wordsworth's poem, "The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon." And what we now have the chance to do is to rectify that imbalance. We've chosen mind over spirit. We've chosen domination over learning and serving. We've chosen technology over wisdom. This is the time to bring back the balance in how we treat the earth. Thank you. Sandrine? No, Francois.
Thank you, Philip. It's great to be part of this exercise. Complementary to what the beautiful values you've already heard, there is 3 more I will try to develop: youth empowerment, education, and new citizenship. So starting with youth empowerment, basically we promise to listen to our youth. We are not doing it enough. Very far from it. And so we have to recognize that the future belongs to our youth by definition. So we commit to supporting and amplifying their work and whatever issue they will want to tackle. And we recognize that their visions, fear, creativity, and courage of young people, and we promise to take their views into account when making decisions that impact their futures. Actually, this is very much in line with the UN declarations on children's rights, because the UN Declaration on Children's Rights says that, we have to hear them on everything that concerns them. But we are not doing it very much so far. And actually, there is one right that is not part of their declaration so far, which is the right to ask for new rights. So I guess we should maybe give them that extra right and then see what are the rights that they want. They might ask for right for themselves, for right for nature, right for climate, right for all sorts of problems that they believe should be tackled through rights, which is through, the rule of law. And I think we have to encourage them to think like this much more than we've done so far. So I think that's very important. And it's very complementary to one right, that is the right to education. And so in terms of education, we have to promise to give education a deeper purpose. And purpose is not a word that we hear very much in education circles. I don't know why, but it's a real issue, and we have to work on it. So we have to acknowledge that in our communities, creative practices and education should be aimed at awakening all generations to our connections to ourselves, others, other species, and our planet. That we promote the understanding that are parts of a living system where one part affects other parts. And we have to commit to providing quality education to all children to make sure that they all find their inner purpose. And that means that we have to encourage them to explore what's truly deeply meaningful to each one of them. And so that might, in Japanese, they talk about ikigai to say about this, which means, find what they love, find what is useful for the planet and their community, find what they can do that is impactful and that they can learn how to do and do efficiently, and that they can find resources around them so that they can not only flourish individually, but indeed be very impactful, because we'll need all of them to be as impactful and purposeful as possible. So I think that's one of the other key dimensions. And these are very complementary to the notion of citizenship. Citizenship, so far, the only non-citizen on the planet among the human species are the very young ones. And it's amazing that, they are not true citizens in any country that I know of. But actually, none of us is a true citizen of the world, in the sense that we are citizens of our nations, or that the ancient Greek were citizens of Athens. But remember, not everyone was a citizen back then. So we encourage a new understanding of global citizenship, which leads to planetary ethos of stewardship. We wish to establish a citizenship based on fractal democracy that includes everyone in a participatory manner in local communities, nations, and the planet. We nourish citizenship whereby each citizen understands their obligations and responsibilities as well as benefits. We strive to awaken from ego to cultivate eco-consciousness, requiring the citizens to be humble in the face of the earth and the future. And this new citizenship has to go much beyond what Athens was doing for its citizens and its non-citizens. Remember, in Athens, only white male that were born in Athens, of parents born in Athens, were considered citizens. Okay, so of course, slaves were not, women were not, children were not, any migrant were not. So we reinvented citizenship during the Enlightenment. But you know what? We kept forgetting women, children, migrants, and the poor, and so on. So, in our new citizenship, we have to be inclusive. It has to be an inclusive citizenship. It has to be a fractal one, meaning that we are all local citizens, but we're all national citizens. We are European citizens or continental citizens, wherever continents we live on, and we should be planetary citizens, meaning that we have to be able to have the right to vote for decisions that will impact us at the global scale. At the moment, none of us is a true global citizen in the sense that we are national citizens. So we have to reinvent citizenship, and reinventing citizenship that is inclusive and fractal is something that we've never done. And it's a big challenge. But fortunately, we do have technologies to do this. They are called civic tech or citizenship technologies. And they can be very empowering because they can allow us not to vote once every 4 or 5 years, but to be able to be invited to contribute as citizens to every important decision at the local scale, at the global scale, at the national scale. And we could do this at all time. And to finish, all these three dimensions, youth empowerment, education, and new citizenship, are part of what Sandrine will tell you about, which is how to become good ancestors. Sandrine, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Francois and Philippe, for building up the tone as we move through this incredible new mantra of this Marshall Plan, which we're hoping so many of us across the globe will adopt. The good ancestor, as you say, Francois, absolutely does build on what you've just indicated. The need to ensure that we promise to do unto all future children what we would have wanted our ancestors to do unto us. This shift from ego to ego and the anthropocentric focus of today, which Pope Francis has been so clear about. We can no longer just think about ourselves. We must think about the generations of tomorrow. And this also brings in the importance of our global commons and our global goals, and also this importance of what does the new citizen look like? The new citizen no longer just thinks about him or herself. It doesn't just think about his or her country. It now thinks about how do we vote? How do we put in place the resilience that we need for future generations? How do we bring in the considerations of future generations of people? We know that the next generation will actually be inheriting a sick planet. We know that the next generation, unfortunately, will also be the first generation that will make love less than its parents. So what we need to think about as good ancestors, all of us, is to put in place the governance frameworks, the institutions, the insurance policies that enables us to build the resilience that we need within our economies, within our policies, within our educational system that takes into consideration the planet, the planetary boundaries, and of course, all of those generations that should be able to continue to live on this planet. And maybe I will just complete this last goal with my very important Tintin rocket, because we're always talking about a mission to the future or a mission to the moon. And I would like to say that the good ancestor mission is to preserve the planet. We don't need to go elsewhere. That's a scapegoat, that's a cop-out. So that is the 8th incredible principle of this Marshall Plan. The 9th incredible principle of this Marshall Plan is the life economy, the fact that we promise to build a caring economy focused on the human being rather than the human doing. And I would add to that a life economy that again preserves the planet within the planetary boundaries, that comes back to the Ubuntu philosophy, to the philosophy of indigenous peoples across the globe who have always tried to show us the way, but we have lost the path. And the path within the life economy has to be around discussing the real nature of today's economy, an economy which is completely broken, an economy which no longer actually is centered and never was on people, planet, and prosperity. An economy which takes into consideration valuing our future, again, as good ancestors, building in the transformative elements that we've seen through the pandemic, understanding what it means to transform in this time, to take into consideration lives and livelihoods, as well as the earth and planetary boundaries alongside social implications as we move forward. So the life economy is preserving the human doing for fulfillment for all, including all peoples in a very equitable society, but one also that clearly lives within the planetary boundaries. And the only way to do that is the 10th clear principle, partnership. Radical partnerships, radical new collaborations, fully intergenerational, understanding again that no partnership will succeed unless we are open coming back to not the ego, but the eco, that we can fulfill our co-development, our co-creation by designing the future together. That means multi-sectoral partnerships. That means partnerships between cities, regions, and governments at the national level and at the international. That means a variety of different partners at different levels across governance. It means breaking down all the silos that we see between ministries in governments, optimizing a systems approach and understanding that actually it is only together by truly understanding our one aim, once again, the mission for the planet, that we can actually make this work.
Ooh.
Fantastic. I love your passions, all of you.
So we now want to just open the floor for 8 or 9 minutes, and maybe we could start with Philip or Francois. Do you want to respond particularly to what Sandrine just said in her statement, or vice versa, as we see fit? I'll give you a heads up, and we're about to run out of time.
I had wanted actually to ask questions to my colleagues. Why focus on youth as such? Is it just that youth have less power, Francois? Or how is the focus on ancestors from Sandrine and the focus on the youth connected? How are they related in your mind?
So, my answer would be that, young people are the future. Some of them will see the 22nd century, probably none of us. So that's one short answer, because we have to prepare for the 22nd century, and we have to make sure that, the 22nd century is sustainable, and that's their future. We're not going to be there. And so that's a very short answer. But I do think that there is other arguments for this. There is a researcher in Berkeley, Alison Gopnik, that has shown that, the young persons are the R&D department of species with big brains and slow maturation time, very much like ours, including ours, of course. And so, she's shown that, 5-year-olds are more creative than Berkeley undergrad. Okay. And so, we have to tap into their creativity. There's two bigger creativity, 5 and teens. Okay. So we have to make sure that we listen to those voices, because they have dreams that we cannot even dream of. And I think that we can nevertheless empower them and build for them technologies that will empower them, and environment that will empower them, where they will have a chance to express their dreams. And then we can build maybe GPS of dreams, where, we can connect those that share the same dreams and do very much like John Lennon was saying, I may be a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. So if all those that share the same dreams would come together, bond together, and start working on their dreams, then they can turn them into a reality. And I think that's what we can empower our youth with.
I saw you nodding, Sandrine.
Yeah, absolutely. As Francois knows, I love this, and it sure in the hell is a lot better than GPS of nightmares, which is what we're seeing now. But I would bring in a couple of other elements to the youth point, and I fully agree with Francois. I mean, the creativity of young people, especially primary school children, is fundamental. And there have been so many studies that have indicated that we start to get blinkered already through the educational system after about 10 years old, if not earlier. And that our creativity is stifled because we are constrained within neoliberal models and other types of models at all levels, which do not enable that creativity to thrive. But I think there's another element as well, which is a much more important, and for me, quite an emotional element in all of us who have young adults. One is we need to bring in the youth because they are struggling, because they are angry, because they are not given the tools that they need to deal with the complexity of the world around them. And I think that, and in fact, I've just finished publishing a book with 3 other people, other women, 2 of which are young women, and it's an intergenerational dialogue And what was fascinating in that dialogue was to be able to share and cry and laugh together, but in particular for them to realize that there are adults that care, that there have been many generations that have fought for different aspects, whether they be human rights or whether they be planetary rights, but that there is a deep despair right now at many levels, which we must get through together. And the only way to actually work forward and be better ancestors is to co-create that future together. So I'm very much for an intergenerational dialogue. I don't think the youth are going to save the future, and I don't think it's fair for us to put that burden on them. But I do think that if we can all be honest together in order to try to co-create through many of those principles, again, compassion and love, and an understanding and mutual respect of each other's intelligence, emotional as well as intellectual, then hopefully we can truly get that mission off the ground and protect this planet.
It strikes me that when we speak of future generations, the next future generation is the one that's already alive.
Yes.
So we have the first responsibility to them. I also wanted to say briefly my enthusiasm, Sandrine, for your comments about the elders. And I actually, as you were speaking, I realized that it has three different aspects. There are the elders of our species, the people, the indigenous peoples who lived in harmony with the earth for hundreds of thousands of years in a sustainable way. And they remain somehow for us a model of what we need to get back to. Love means living with the earth the way that indigenous peoples did.
Yes.
And then I think of the elders as the great spiritual traditions of the earth, of indigenous peoples, of South Asia, of Southeast Asia, of the Abrahamic family, of non-religious but spiritual forms of practice. And that's a kind of eldering. They have left us ideas, a legacy of wisdom that I think we are going to need to draw fully from to make it through. And the last is the living resource, the elders. In English, we've started to speak of the verb to elder or eldering as bringing the wisdom of an accumulated lifespan for the sake not of one's own comfort and consumption, but for the sake of offering guidance to, as Francois says, the young and creative ones. And that also strikes me as a resource.
I love this, Philip. I think that we will need a database of the ancient traditions and of the elders of today that will be sharing what they want to share. There is a fantastic Confucian quote where he was saying that to reach wisdom, there is three ways. The first one is to make many mistakes and learn from your mistake. The second one is to have deep thinking, but not everyone has the chance to be able to have that deep thinking, especially in this world where we are bombarded with the economy of attention, ping, and so on. And the third one, which is the easiest, according to him, is to imitate the wisest people around you. But what he didn't describe was how do you identify the wisest people around you? And we are not even inviting the wisest people around us to talk, and those that want to talk and say they are the wisest are of course not the wisest. And they are the ones that make the most noise, that's all. So I think we have to maybe, build Socratic technology and Confucian technology and crowdsource, collective intelligence and collective wisdom to invite everyone, all generations of all culture to share their wisdom that they've acquired through any of the Confucian techniques.
Thank you, Francois. Sandrine, we're broadcasting this on Earth Day as part of the Future Food Institute's ruminations on the food ecosystems. Do you want to talk a little bit about that quickly, and then we shall wind up?
Yeah, absolutely, because I actually think we're getting to a point where it's very significant, in particular around indigenous wisdom and the way in which we deal with the land and we hold the land true to everything. As the co-chair of the UN Food Systems Summit on Resilience, Action Track 5, as we call it in technocratic speak, I think it's really important that we bring in this point of indigenous wisdom, that we bring in actually, again, much of what we spoke about, because we're having these discussions today within a food systems context. We need to build a food system that, first of all, has a priority to feed people, not the commodification of food. It is a human right. And that comes back to shifting from profit motives and prosperity for a few to what does it mean to produce food. Then the second key point is, how do we produce the food? How do we ensure that when we are producing food for as many people as possible, we have a healthy food system in a healthy planet? And that means ensuring that we actually bring back as a carbon stock. We ensure that we regenerate our food system and our land. We look at soil management, we look at agroecology, and we look at regenerative. And all of those thinking, all of that kind of agricultural land use development that we're looking at that comes back to people who truly respect the land is based on indigenous ways. Agroecology is very much fundamentally based on local, scaled up and replicated systems, but that ensure that we're giving as much back to the land as we are taking from the land. And so I think everything that we've said, these 10 principles fit in beautifully in the type of food system that we actually need for today and for tomorrow if we're going to be good ancestors.
Sandrine, I think you've just done my summary for me. I couldn't possibly top that. Just to say in conclusion that we have the technocratic means at our disposal to shift our food systems. We have all the tools and all the technologies we require, but what we need is a shift in cultural values. And I think that shift has to happen in the boardroom as much as it happens at the dining table. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to wish everyone a happy Earth Day, and please go to rebootthefuture.org for more information about how we proceed with this fascinating conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Happy Earth Day.
Thank you.